Hello, class. Welcome to today's lecture. I think this is the last lecture for this semester. So, we will be discussing about India's relationship with its neighbors. So, as in the last class, we have read about Bangladesh and India, and partly we have read about India and Pakistan. We are will be starting from we will be starting from India and Pakistan wars because last class we have left there. So those who haven't followed my lecture, so please go through the previous lectures which are there on YouTube. Where I'll be talking about India and the US relationships, India and Russia's relationship, India and China, India and Bangladesh, India and Pakistan. So today's lecture will be learning more about India and Pakistan and India and Sri Lanka. So I hope everybody is following this lectures. So I expect you to write a better essays or you to have a better opinion about what are the relationships that have been existing between India and its neighbors and India and the superpowers. So uh, as a discipline belonging to Pol.Science discipline, you should be having basic idea, not basic idea, more than the basic idea of how the incidents have been portrayed, how the incidents have been going on, and how these relationships have been enhanced over the periods or deteriorated over the period. So those all these things you should be knowing, and the turning points in the history regarding how the relationship between the states, I mean, the India and other countries have existed over the period. So first, now let us understand the things about India and Pakistan. So as we have already read about India and Bangladesh, so India and Pakistan, let us understand. So India and Pakistan, as we have already read, we have a strong we have a strong geographical, historical, and cultural, even familiar association between India and Pakistan. So we came to a position to build a cooperation and friendship. So if you have known like Aman Ki Asha or Lahore bus diplomacy or the friendships, enhanced cooperation, and the corridors that have been recently opened. All these things have led to the building up of position between India and Pakistan. So these are the major issues which have been strained. So first one is Kashmir dispute. These all we have read about these in the previous lectures, but I am just brushing off your memories. Then, like how the Kashmir dispute have formed the main center stage with tribal invaders and Maharaja said into India, and Pakistan side did not like it. So, and also this India has taken this matter to UNSC, United Nations Security Council, regarding like international dispute should be settled by this organization. But till date, this has still been left as such. And also, over a period, we have made it as a bilateral issue. So, where we do not want any superpowers, we do not want any outside power to get involved in the fight between India and Pakistan. And the displaced person minority issue was also a main thing that have happened during the partition. Then it was basically signed with the Nehru Liaquat Agreement. So in 1850, this is also very important for competitive exams. Then we have canal water disputes. You all know that Indus water were stopped because by the India. So this deal was brokered by World Bank in 1960 or 1950. So correct me the date. So it was brokered by the World Bank, and that the water should be passed on part what and the the dams, hydroelectric dams should also be constrained. But this agreement, it says in the agreement that if any of the country does not follow any of these rules or the precautions that have been mentioned by this World Bank and the treaty that was made, Indus Water Treaty, so that could be considered as an act of war. So India in oppression to Pahalgam attacks, it has stopped the water flow to the Pakistan region. So you might have seen all these things in news. I hope everybody could have followed what really had happened. So now another thing is the water supply. So this was had earlier happened. Yeah. So Indus Water Treaty in 1960. Then we also have this border dispute, Radcliffe Award, and we have the border dispute with China regarding what? Please explain. Comment to me. And the demarcation of East Pakistan, like it was completed in 1960. Then Rajasthan and Pakistan boundary in 1963. Then Run of Kutch issue also we have read it in previous lecture. Then 1965, how the war it led to Indo-Pak War and post-war, how we have agreed to a ceasefire and both the armies would go back to the position of 1965. So all these things have been gone through. So the other conflict zones could be seen in the Siachen Glacier and Sir Creek Estuary and the Tulbul or the Bullar project. Then India's war with Pakistan. So India have had major wars taken place between these two nations. In one in 1947, the other in 1965. The other one is through the East Pakistan, 1971, the Bangladesh. And the other one is 1999. This is a Kargil war. This is an unofficial. It's not declared as a war, but it's unofficial uh, uh, issues or the war-like situation that had happened in the nation. So first one, if we talk about 1947 war, so this is also known as a proxy war, the first or the first war that has it to be ever happened between India and Pakistan. And this was mainly because accession of or the independence movements, which this broke out between both the armies of India and Pakistan in Kashmir. So this was after the independence of the both the nations. So this has happened in October 1947, and this has led to the Kashmir dispute. Like the first war, it was during 1947. The Kashmir dispute was the main issue, the containment area, which had led to the war. And this has ended in 1948, 1st January. Now, what happened was how it has ended is United Nations, the international organization which was made to look into any warlike situations or to reduce the conflict that could be happening in the world. So, this United Nations has arranged a ceasefire and recommended that a plebiscite on the accession of Kashmir to India to be held. So, United Nations organizations, uh, United Nations organizations as a part of being an international organization. So this has recommended the plebiscite on the accession of Kashmir to be India to be held. So now what happened? Indian government had agreed for the eviction of the invaders and full restoration of Kashmir or law and order in Kashmir, and the plebiscite was held. So in this like in a way they thought that this issue on Kashmir region could be solved over a period. So this was another first international organizations interfering in the bilateral matters of these two countries. And the next war would be like 1965 war. This is also a very important war. This is the second war, but it is very important war where the Pakistan had launched armed attacks in Ran of Kutch of Gujarat. So this also we have seen how the India and Pakistan war has led to, and we day to day still read parts of this war zones. We still read how the situations have been in the earlier years. So all these things we would be understanding, or all these things we would be learning. The India had captured like the new areas of Kashmir and which were under illegal occupation of Pakistan. And what happened was UN had mandated this ceasefire. And in 1966, the Pakistan Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and uh, I'm sorry. In 1966, Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and Pakistan's PM, the General Ayub Khan, they both have said to have signed this Tashkent Declaration with the diplomatic intervention of Soviet Union. So now what happened was 1965 war. In 1965 war, if you go back through the history, it was supported. The USA had supported the Pakistan right to accession for Kashmir, and eventually China had also supported the Pakistan. So they both have taken the sides of Pakistan, whereas India was accomplished or at least supported on international space by Russia. So now what happened was they thought that this cannot keep on going as these two are could be the powerful rising nations in the South Asia. So if these two powerful countries could be going, so this is not how it is going to go. So it ended their mandate. And India had captured like new areas of Kashmir which were under like illegal occupation of Pakistan, and also the UN had mandated a ceasefire where the armies should go back to the earlier position, uh, where until where before the war had started. So now what happened was like in 1966, then both the prime ministers both the premiers of the countries have been called on upon by the Moscow. So the Moscow has acted as a mediator, and they've been called to Tashkent, and the Tashkent declaration was signed. So this Tashkent declaration was signed, or it was a peace treaty. So it was a peace treaty that has been signed, made to be signed by these two countries. So now you all know what had happened after the postmort of the Tashkent Declaration. The Lal Bahadur Shastri, the Indian Prime Minister, uh, was has said to have uh, been dead over there, and then the relationships did not worsen further also. So these are all like the behind the scenes, which are not as related in this lecture today. So the diplomatic intervention has been followed by the Soviet Union. So now this was the second war that we can talk about India and Pakistan. Now, if we look at it, the another war that had broke out between India and Pakistan, but this was not a direct act of war, but this was basically like the India had been helping the East Pakistan. So India had been helping the East Pakistan to get its liberation from the Pakistan mainland. So now what happened was in 1971, this war had been war broke out between India and Pakistan. So now the main reason would be like the Bangladesh. And this was also, if in details, if you go through details, there are many books that talk about it. So one of such book is Vortex. So VORTEX. So Vortex, which speaks indefinitely about this 1971 Indo the Bangla Liberation War. So now India had achieved victory in Pakistan in this war, over Pakistan in this war. Basically, so on December 6th, 1971, the East Pakistan became an independent country under the name of Bangladesh. Now, what happened was this was signed, or this was also brought to be by the historic agreement between these two nations, where it was known as the Shimla Agreement. So the Shimla Agreement was signed by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and Pakistan President Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. So now what happened was during this Simla agreement, the terms and conditions would be like the coexistence, mutual respect for territorial integrity, non-interference, good neighborliness, normalization of relations for peace and progress. So no war pact proposals should be made. So all these things have been going on after this Shimla agreement. So this is also another important landmark, historic landmark that you should be remembering for writing an essay or being a discipline of Pol.Science or for the competitive exams that you could be preparing for. So again, now what happened in 1999 was during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's prime ministership, a war or a conflict that we can call it, or a proxy war. The conflict had broke out between India and the Pakistan army. So where the Pakistan army has intruded the Kargil sector. So this had led to India launching Operation Vijay. So Operation Vijay is a combined operation of Indian Army and Air Force. So this is how the Kargil War has said to have successfully evoked or successfully recovered the conflict areas of and the restore the LOC area. So had been effectively recovered, and the relations in the recent years could also be seen like the surgical strikes in 2016. So what happened in 2016 is basically we are talking about army base camp in Uri. So in September 2016, some of the terrorists have attacked an army base camp in India, so which is basically in Jammu and Kashmir, and they had killed around 17 Indian soldiers. So on September 29, in retaliation to that, India, in its first direct military response to Uri attack, conducted surgical strikes. And eventually in 2019, what happened was Pulwama attack had happened. So now here what happened? 40 members of CRPF, Indian Central Reserve Police Force, were killed in a suicide bombing in Pulwama, which is again in Jammu and Kashmir. So this has led to India again retaliating. So what happened was 26 February, Indian government had carried out in 2020 had carried out non-military preemptive strikes. So now what are these non-military preemptive strikes? So non-military preemptive strikes are basically like the target would be the anti-state, like the terrorist groups or the terrorist training camps near Balkot. So these are termed as a Balkot strikes, counter strikes. And in spite of military and diplomatic defeat, Pakistan continues its anti-India policy, and this has been often indulging in cross-border terrorism and proxy wars by inducting its security forces. This anti-India campaign or the cross-border terrorism, you could also be seen in the recent Pahalgam attacks and the retaliation done by the India to it in the name of Operation Sindur. So now, if we talk about India and Pakistan relationships, sorry. So if we talk about India and Pakistan relationships, so it's always an on and off with with India trying to have these diplomatic relationships. So this could also be seen in the Tashkent Agreement, or be it Simla Agreement, or be it after Kargil, the Lahore bus diplomacy, or the Aman Ki Asha, or the corridors that have been opened for the access of pilgrimage and the soft power enhancement, and inviting or either the Pakistan's higher officials to India on the higher level diplomatic associations. But these relationships have always been deteriorated, with especially with Pakistan's anti-India policy or anti-India campaign, and also especially China being the greatest funding element to the Pakistan. You can also see like with the recent the Operation Sindoor, how the untested or the missiles that have been acquired from China and from the Turkey were being used on the Pakistan side. And also, it was said that the India in international space is said to have been uh, brinking on the verge of war. Like the narrative were also built So all these things, all the diplomatic, all the military issues that continue to reduce the conflict, but with Pakistan, from the state perspective, indulging itself in cross-border terrorism or the proxy wars or state-sponsored terrorism by also inducting its own security forces, the state security forces, in helping out these terrorist organizations is unacceptable or the undeniable feature which has been causing the terrorism um, or the terrorist attacks in India. So this is how the India-Pak relationships have existed over the period, and the recent times they have been deteriorated. I don't think in near time there would be any peace treaty retaliation among the two nations. Now let us understand another most important neighbor of India. So this is India and Sri Lanka relationships. So now what happened was India and Sri Lanka relationships. So India and Sri Lanka similarly got independence from British rule about the same time, just like the Pakistan. So the period was also very nearby, and we and Sri Lanka both have the differences in the foreign policy approach and the perceptions that we follow on and the certain factors that kept their ties limited. So, although we have a neighbor in our near backyard, but the approaches, the concepts, and the perceptions or the ideology that has been followed are varied differently in comparison with India. So, this could also be seen in maritime boundary. This could also be seen in the issues that, or the disputes, we can say, disputes between India and Sri Lanka. This can be seen in certain factors as such. The first one of such factor would be maritime boundary dispute. So now maritime boundary dispute can be seen like the of both 1974 and 1976. Now what happened is there's been an international boundary between India and Sri Lanka in waters in Park State because we don't share any land borders with Sri Lanka. So it's only the water borders that we share, and this is called as Park Strait and the Park Bay. This is demarcated on 1974. So this is how the boundary dispute or arrangement has been done. So now what this boundary agreement had made this Kachativu Island under the on the side of Pakistan, sorry, Sri Lanka's boundary. So now what happened? There has been many complaints around how the unhealthy incidents that have been happening around involving Sri Lanka's naval patrols and like the Indian fishermen. Like this mostly could have been like abusive relationships or the fishermen's who drift away with the ocean waters could also be uh, caught, tortured, and like all these things that were happening. Now, next one is issue of excuse me, issue of citizenship of stateless persons of Indian origin. So now, what happened was, if we look at Sri Lanka, most of the mostly the Tamil population is the and they are basically residing in the northern and east of Sri Lanka. So now why does Sri Lanka have this over a million of Indian origin people? This is because of Indians have been migrating to Sri Lanka in the 19th century. Now what for? So they have been migrating to Sri Lanka due to the coffee plantation boom. So they need the employees or they need the workers to be working in this coffee fields. So now the immigrants of India, like the Tamil people, they have been going to Sri Lanka in search of work, like all these things, like the boom that had happened because the relationships were further, and it was mostly under the British rule, right? So, and the rubber plantations also in 1920. This also further increased the immigration of Sri Lanka Indians to Sri Lanka. Now, what happened was there has been no proper attempts that have been made by like either neither India or Sri Lankan government to secure the position of these immigrants, Indian immigrants who have gone to Sri Lanka on the notion of work to be working in rubber plantations or to be working in the coffee plantations. So now what happened was over a period, these people who have migrated to Sri Lanka were left to be stateless. So these persons are original of Indian origin. They have been left to stateless because their generations after generations have passed on in to be working in the Sri Lankan islands. So they said to have been of no proper origin, like neither of the countries have initiated any help in looking into their day-to-day issues. Now, what happened was this has led to ethnic conflict. Now, what happened was the Sinhalese constituted around like 70% of Sri Lankan population, and the Tamils constitute around 12% of Sri Lanka's population. They both accept the not not the both the Tamil population accept their traditional links with India. Now, what happened is 1958, the Sinhala language of the Sinhalese was declared as a national language by Stimavo Bandaranaike's government. So now what happened was the over this period, the Tamil minorities who have immigrated to or migrated to Sri Lanka have been struggling to safeguard their rights. Now, in the virtue of the same, the group Tamil Elam have been demanding for an independent state of Tamils in Sri Lanka. So this had led to ethnic conflict in Sri Lanka between the Tamilians and the Sinhalese, who assumed serious proportions in 1983. Now, what happened was the Tamil Tigers, the Tamil Elams, have said to have killed 13 soldiers of the Sri Lankan army, and they said to have retaliated by discriminative killing and tortures of this Tamil people. So now this has led to over a ethnic conflict, turned out to be verge of the genocide type situations, and the violence had broke out during the periods 1983 and 86. About the 2 lakh Tamilians into refugees, and around like 25,000 refugees, like the Tamilians who have settled in Sri Lanka, came to India. Now, in point of view, what happened was Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India, and Jayawardene was the President of Sri Lanka. So they both said to have signed a Sri Lankan Accord in 1987 to provide for Indian peacekeeping forces, like Indian peacekeeping forces to fight against this or to control the situation that had been happening in Sri Lanka. Now, what happened? LTT, the Tamilam Tigers, which is basically a rebel group because this is working against the government that was in position, right? So the LTT had been clashed with IPKF, like the Indian Peacekeeping Force. So the IPKF proved to be a blunder, and the May 1991 election campaign, the Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated, and investigations revealed that LTT hand was there in the crime. So India had been fighting against its own earlier citizens in a foreign land. So what happened was this Tamil LTT had said to have assassinated Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in 1991, like during an election campaign that had been happening. So this was an unexpected turn that had come to India. Now, what happened was in the IPKF, the peacekeeping force, was brought to an end in India in 1990, where India is said to have had this direct involvement in Sri Lanka. And after about like 25 years of violence had finally ended or ceased to exist when the Sri Lankan government had got the control of the area by the Tamil Tiger rebels. So this is how the Tamil Eelam and the protests that have been going on between the Sri Lankan Tamils and the Sinhalese. So if you have time, so please go through like the LTT and IPKF and how the Sinhalese Jayawardene government had led to this rebel ethnic conflict. So this is a true history that you should know about. And also you should also go through India-Pakistan wars in details because there are many books regarding how the issues have been going on between India and Pakistan and like how the minor conflicts have been turned out to be major stalemates. So then I hope you all follow those stories and have a basic idea about how the things have been. Now, next, another most important problem with India and Sri Lanka is this fishermen disputes. So now what happens is the fishermen disputes because as the international borders are very nearby, so this drifting away of fishermen from one country and entering the waters of the other country has always been a constant dispute between India and Sri Lanka. So now what does this Sri Lanka does is like Sri Lanka complains about India the illegal fishing by Indian fishermen. So because it tries to assert or it tries to show that these Indian fishermen have been crossing the international boundary line that had been demarcated between the India and Sri Lanka. So this is how why the Sri Lanka has been complaining about this thing. Now, India and Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. So, India and Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement had come into force in 1998. This was during Sri Lankan President Chandrika Kumaratunga's visit to India. So, so India Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, and this agreement had come into force in 2000. This is also very important timeline, um, especially if you are reading about foreign relationships, international relationships between India and the neighbors. And now, how the relationships have been between India and Sri Lanka in the recent years. So, Sri Lanka's President Rajapaksa and there's a mistake here. So, yeah. Had visited India in 2019 have signed that friendly relationships between India and Sri Lanka could exist over a period. So they have signed for the development cooperation. So now what is this development cooperation is Sri Lanka is a major recipient of India's developmental assistance from government of India. So this is very important thing. Then India's housing project with an initial commitment to build 50,000 houses for the war affected. Then various other agreements that also could be seen is like in 2019, India and Sri Lanka also have conducted this human trafficking and the counseling of the drugs in the nations or that could be smuggled through the international waters. And also, we both countries, Sri Lanka and India, have said to have signed this civil nuclear cooperation agreement and Sri Lanka's first nuclear partnership with any country. This is also very important because India is the first country to ever sign any civil nuclear agreement with Sri Lanka. Now, another one is India is also investing in Sri Lanka's infrastructure development in north and western eastern provinces is also very important. Then India is also planning to build Trincomalee port. So now what is this Trincomalee report is to counterbalance the China's influence in Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. So these are all very important. They might also ask you a question like, where is Trincomalee port or where is Hambantota port? Yeah, so they both are in Sri Lanka. You should have an idea about. Now comes the another important questions of like why India and Sri Lanka are important to each other. So other than being the nearest neighbor with just the international boundary or the demarcated boundary, the park strait very nearby. So other than that, we are the largest trading partner and the leading FDI source of Sri Lanka and also the top tourist contributor over there. And India had extended grants and concessional loans to Sri Lanka. And Indian Ocean trade routes like the Park Strait, Sri Lanka, is essential to India's maritime security and energy lifelines. Then Sri Lanka also acts as a buffer in countering Chinese strategic encirclement through the BRI and the port developments in Hambantota port, like Chinese development of Pearl String or border and belt and road initiative. So all these things could be countered if we have a better relationships with Sri Lanka. Then Sri Lanka also had supported India's candidature for non-permanent seat at UN Council in 2028 and 29. Now, what are certain challenges that exist between India and Sri Lanka relationships? First one of such program is China's BRI Border Route Initiative products. Belt Road Initiative products. Like this is like a total debt crunch. Like what happened was China had leased out this Hambantota port from Sri Lanka for over 99 years. So this has raised concerns over India in strategic encirclement because it's been occupied in the Himalayan borders, then in Pakistan, then in Myanmar. Now in waters also it has been encircled, said to have encircled India. Then in how can we enhance India and Sri Lanka relationships is to integrate and to invest in Sri Lankan digital economy because Sri Lanka's growing IT sector offers a fantastic opportunity for India and also India's expertise in solar and wind energy can help Sri Lanka reduce its dependence on fossil fuels and develop sustainable energy infrastructure. And also with implementation of PTCA, this can also reduce trade barriers and boost India-Sri Lanka bilateral trade. So it's always a win-win situation for Sri Lanka to have a better relationships with India and enhance its development in both economy and the aspects that it had or the trade or like to falling into the debt crunch that had been put out by the China. So this is how the India and Sri Lanka relationships could be evolved over a period. Now we have read in this lecture previously about how India and Bangladesh with Bangladesh uh, democratically elected government, interim government had been found and then the Bangla had been and the military regime taking over the governments and how the relationships between India and Pakistan have changed over a period and how the war has been caused over this issue of Kashmir and the cross-border terrorism and the state-led terrorist attacks by on the counterpart of Pakistan. So, and India's retaliation to it. And now, just now we have spoke about India and Sri Lanka and how the enhanced cooperation could lead to India's could lead to development of Sri Lanka, and also India can overthrow the encirclement that has been caused by China. Then how the relationship between India and China have been deteriorated over a period, because initially India has been always supportive of China, be it as a punchil or be it as a support to recognizing the Chinese government, communist government, or pushing their membership in United Nations. So, irrespective of all these things, the war had broken out between India and China in 1962 that had caused the shock waves in Indian diplomatic relations or India's PMO, and also initially like how the relationship between India and USA have changed over a period. So how USA had always been skeptical about India's position and how it had always supported Pakistan. And also we have read about how Russia has been always, even before the Russia, like the Soviet era, since the beginning of Soviet era, how it had been influencing or the enhancing the relationships between India and Russia, the Soviet Union, or even after the disintegration, how the relationships have enabled and how the India and Russia strategic partnership deal was signed in 2000, and how the technological enhancement or the economic growth that have happened between India and Russia over the periods. So all these things we have read in the last three lectures. So this is very important unit. So you should be understanding certain points, and you have to be going through the slides to rather understand how uh, the international space that could be followed. And before writing, you can approach to an answer. You can approach an answer. Let's suppose they'll ask you India's relationship between any of the nations. So first, you have to write the history behind the how the enhanced relationships have come over a period. Then you have to write about major disputes that have gone, the historical background about major disputes that have been through between the states. Then you can write how it is beneficial for both countries to have a friendly cooperation. Then another one, you can also write like how uh, what are the threats that could be caused with the involvement of such nations, and the position of these two countries in international space. And you can also write way forward, and also give your and give your opinion about like how the relationships should have been, and the in comparison with the changing world order in the international arena. So all these things you can write, and also the challenges in maintaining a peace or balance in relationships between these countries. So this is how you can approach an answer. I expect uh, you to have an idea about the treaties, dates, because it's very important, not just for writing an essay answer, but also very important with competitive exams. So I hope, and also critical evaluation is also very much necessary, because you'll be emphasizing on the data that has been already existing and giving your opinion about how the situation should have been handled, or how the situations could be handled, should be handled in future. So I hope everybody is clear with this lectures today. And if you have any doubts, you have to go through the last two lectures also regarding this India US, India Russia, then India China, India Pakistan, India Bangladesh, and India and Sri Lanka. So I hope. And also, you have to go through the other materials, and if possible, you can read the textbooks which talk about India-China war, India-Pakistan wars, and how the prime ministers of the different times have handled the situations over a period. So these are all like as a discipline, not belonging to a political sense. You should have basic understanding about our existence and how this existence have molded over a period. Like why did we end up in this situation? So all these things could be followed only if you read, only if you write, only if you remember. So you cannot do simply some gimmicks and come up with India and Pakistan have been fighting wars. This war should be cancelled. Like you cannot give vague answers or vague explanations. You have to enhance your answers with the existing data. So you have to give possible chronology and possible dates and give proof to how and why the situations have changed over a period. So I hope it is clear for everybody and your SEM exams also. So there will be essay and there will be long answers from these two units or basically the last chapter. So read accordingly and understand the concept, then it will be very easy for you to write the answers. So I hope that's all for the this semester with this international relations concept. I hope you have followed all the lectures over a period. If not, again go through the YouTube live and the slides that we have provided. So you can also ask doubts if you come across in the comments also. If we find out anytime soon, we might respond. So yeah, that's all for this semester and hope you all understood. And also please go through various different sources also, uh, build your answers with the uh, provided data. So don't just write any answer without any data. Data adds this value added information to your answers and it shows the examiner that you have actually read about the issues, you have actually read about the conflicts. So yeah, that's all for today, and that's all. See you again in another semester, if it is happening. Otherwise, good luck for your future. So good, all the best for your upcoming semester exams. So that's all for today. I only thing I can say is like go through all the lectures again if you are missed any of it or not comfortable in understanding anything. So yeah, see you again.